YouTube as well.
All right. Well, another official welcome since it's a little bit after 4. Welcome to this Indie Birth Zoom that is off of our normal new moon, full moon schedule. We'll see you again this Monday for a full moon gathering, but this one is
Bonus. It's a bonus.
Yeah, bonus time here on abundance and money and some of the things that come in for midwives as they are actually, and perhaps also for those of you doing work, how that might factor in. Who knows what will come out today. A card for us all to just guide the discussion.
Can you hold on one second, Maren? Is Maren cutting out in and out for you guys too, or is it just me?
Yes, it's cutting out.
I could try getting off and coming back. I don't have another solution.
You could also try with no video, but that's not very fun. So maybe, yeah, pop off and back on.
Okay.
And make sure no one else is on your internet, perhaps.
Right. That might be a thing.
That might be a thing.
All right, I'll be back.
Okay, you'll be back. While we're waiting for Maren to come back, let's see. Okay, yeah, thank you guys for letting me know over in the chat too. I thought for sure it was me because my internet's always the one that's wonky. I guess let's just take a minute or two here. And in the chat, I would love to hear, like, if you have specific questions about this topic. We're going to be talking again about abundance as it relates to being a midwife, but I see there's some doulas here too, and this certainly applies to you all as well. And, this could look like a money conversation, which, often is how it ends up, especially when I'm talking about it, since that's my other hat that I wear. I'm also a money and budget coach, because I was inspired to get into that work because of sort of the lack of consciousness around those topics in the birth world. So, oh no, now somebody else is unmuted. Okay. Like I said, so many tech issues today. That's not usually a problem. So anyways, I would love to see over in the chat. We got one question so far on using a sliding scale. What other questions do people have? Has this been something that you've already kind of worked with in your life as a birth worker or in some other way, maybe as a business owner of some other kind? Is this something you're nervous about if you're an aspiring midwife? How do you feel about it? What issues do you anticipate having, or which issues do you maybe already have? Anything you want to share on this topic around abundance and midwifery? I would love to hear those thoughts, questions, comments, so that we can kind of have a springboard to then get into, what we have to say about it. Yeah, questions about like insurance kind of stuff, sliding scale for doula services. I don't see a lot of like typing happening on my end, but if you are typing, go for it. Keep going. But if that didn't sort of inspire you to type something into the chat, okay, cool. Yeah, tips for getting out of scarcity mindset in general. I would love to hear, what do you think of when you hear the word abundance? What other feelings or words or sensations come up when you hear that word? Abundance means we have overflow. We'll get into this some more too, but thank you for putting some of those words there. Are you currently in your life feeling abundant? Is another question I like to ask people. Maybe you are in some ways and not in others. Oops. If I just ask you to unmute, it was an accident. Are there places you do feel abundant? Are there places you feel like you could use more abundance? An exercise I really like to do with people, especially if they're wanting to be a birth worker, is to picture a client handing them, their full fee as a check or cash or whatever. So for most doulas, that's somewhere between $1,000, $1,500. For most midwives, that's somewhere, and there's a wide range, but we'd say somewhere between $4,000 and $5,000 in most places in the US. So picturing having someone hand you that full amount and seeing what comes up for you. If that feels scary, if it feels awesome, maybe it's both. Any number of other feeling words. If it feels icky, if it feels impossible, I'd love to hear how that little mental exercise feels. I'm going to see if Marin's having issues. And thank you for the people who chimed in over there with Tony's question. You do not need to be an RN to be a midwife. Most midwives are not nurses. Elizabeth said, happy dance, in response to that last little thought exercise, someone handing you your full amount. I just had literally a couple hours before this call today, a repeat client, which is my favorite, messaged me and just said, hey, how's your schedule looking for November? And it gets me like so excited. And I already have another repeat client for November. And this one said, and this maybe is a question that would come up today, who knows? She asked if I take HSA cards, and I do, which anyone can. You just need a NPI number to do it, but which is free, as I recall, or maybe it was like $20 to get or something. But I said, yeah. And she said, okay, cool. We'll pay you your full fee at our first meeting. So, like it feels so good just knowing that I'll have an unexpected lump of money this month. Like it feels like magic, and to do a job that I love and with a person I already love and who I've already been with and who had like such a beautiful birth. And it's really, really exciting. So we're not really going to talk about the how I can become a midwife part today. We have like 1 million resources on that topic. I'll post a link really quick here. I really don't know what has happened to Miriam. I'm worried about her, lost in the internet somewhere, but I'll post a link. Let's see. This is it. And this will get you into our whole world in terms of becoming a midwife. We have a school that you could totally look at taking. It's a 20-month program. But we answer a ton of questions in this midwife primer. And from there, you'll get all kinds of other emails from us about the process of becoming a midwife. We also are happy to do free interest calls for people. And that's something you'll also get a link for as you kind of go through the primer and then the emails that follow. Building up a business. Yes, we can totally talk about that. Cool. I'm going to text Marin. She's got to reboot the internet. Okay. Well, we'll just make do for now then. Okay. So we've got a lot of different threads going on over here in the chat, but abundance for me in a lot of ways feels foreign and unfamiliar. So that is a really common thing that we hear, especially from women in this world who are curious about becoming birth workers. Someone is unmuted again. Okay. And I think the reason for that is because people who want to become a doula or a midwife, typically those people are really selfless, right? Like they want to be of service. They want to show up in the world. Sometimes with a little bit of like a savior complex or a hero complex, or coming from maybe a wounded place, even of like, I didn't get these experiences, or I didn't have the support when I was going through this, and I want to change that for others. And what often ends up happening then is that there's sort of an overextension of their energy, especially when they're starting out and they're really excited, and they learn a ton about birth. They can't wait to go to their first couple births. And I was somebody who did this, right? So went every chance I could and did a lot of births for less than I should have gone to them for, because it felt almost like, well, I feel privileged. And part of this is the apprenticeship model, right? Like you go to births for free as an apprentice because you're learning. And so it's hard sometimes to shift from going to births for free because you're so grateful for the learning experience to charging $4,000, $5,000 to go, right? Like that's a pretty big mental shift to make. And so I think a lot of new midwives, myself included, really undervalue their work. And there's this feeling of, like I said, of just feeling like I'm grateful to get to go to births at all. Like, how lucky am I that this is my job? And at first that might be okay. And then at a certain point, most midwives realize like that's not going to be sustainable. And they start seeing how the money part shakes out, whether it's, how much they actually need to live, how much supplies cost, how much time it's really taking with clients on average, right? Because some are quick, some are long. And, even things like taxes, right? And so I was really shocked thinking like, okay, if I do 2 births a month and I take and I charge $2,000 or $3,000, which is what I started out at. I started out with a sliding scale of between $2,000 and $3,000. Like I'm going to be rolling in it. That felt like I was going to be rich, right? Like I thought I'd be totally set. I was also really young when I started. I didn't think at all about investing, retirement, that sort of stuff. And so it was perfect. It was exactly how it should have been for that first couple years, like year or two. And then I realized this isn't going to work long term. And so have increased my rates every year till now. And it's finally at a place where it feels like, okay, this is doable. This is more sustainable. And we can talk more about how I got there and how other midwives get to that place too. But that's just like a tiny bit of of like the story around pricing. I'm briefly mentioned the sliding scale thing, which we can talk more about. And I guess my overarching point with that was just that abundance, when it feels icky or unfamiliar, or maybe there's this sort of archetype in the money world called the vow of poverty, right? The person who has taken this vow of poverty, either consciously or subconsciously. It's this belief that having money makes you a bad person, and that you are a more moral and more maybe even spiritual or a better person if you have less money. And I think I very much was steeped in that through both my like undergraduate experience and background in activism. And that had to shift before I was willing to charge more and start living in a more abundant lifestyle. Oh my gosh, Marin's back. Thank goodness. Because I was like trying to mute people and check the chat and talk at the same time.
Yeah, sorry to leave you hanging. I hope the connection's better because I don't have another idea. So
I think it's better now, at least for this moment.
okay.
Okay, I was mostly rambling. I asked them some fun questions over in the chat, but I don't know if you'll be able to see all their answers since you weren't on when they came in.
Right. Yeah, it erases them for me. So I can't see any of the fun answers at the moment.
It was a loose thread I was on there. It was dicey for a minute, Maren.
I'm sure it was great, Margot.
Oh man.
Do it.
Shauna says, I've not had good experiences attending births at a great discount and feel like it is very important for there to be an exchange, financial or trade. I think we can talk about that for sure. Kaishla says, I've been a trained doula for 8 years and I've offered free services, discounted services, and still no one has hired me to attend a birth. So I'm technically not a certified doula through the program I did. Thankfully, now my husband won't let me do free services. He reminds me I need to charge my worth. Nice. Okay, what is going on with this muting situation? Oh my gosh. I'm going to work on that setting for a minute, Maren, if you want to chat.
Yeah, okay. Well, I can blab too. I'm trying to think of where to start. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to sum up many years of doing this all at once, but I suppose I was lucky in my own training as a midwife, my own apprenticeship. And I worked with midwives that really valued themselves for the most part, and also really did their best with working with the people that felt right for them. So I know in our Elevate program, that's going to be a huge piece, is getting really clear, even if you're someone that's been practicing a while, because I don't think length of practice really has to do with this in a lot of ways, because many midwives weren't really taught, how to screen people to the best of their ability and how to really make sure that it's an energetic match. So for me, that comes first before anything. And the money comes after that. And so for me, over the years, I've had really great experiences actually with people that didn't pay my full fee. And I've had not so pleasant ones as well, but I've had really, really nice experiences if they were the right match, and sort of vice versa. If people weren't the right match, then what they paid didn't necessarily feel worth it. So I think that's really important when we talk about abundance, is not to skip over just our own self-worth and, our own calling. Each of us will work with different women. And I think that's the beauty of what we do. So there is no competition. We don't really have to worry, I don't think, about, having competitive prices. I mean, if a woman out there is only interested in the price of a midwife, she's not the person for me anyway, because I would not start with that. I would not start with that question. That's not the most important. The most important is, are we a good match? And I've always said to people, if we are the right match and that feels like that to you and it feels like that to me, then I'm open to figuring it out. And, I've never turned the right match away for lack of whatever money, because usually it ends up being a really nice exchange. So I have many stories there. There's a podcast somewhere out there. It's called A Birth at the Ashram. And that was an example of a woman who didn't pay a penny in money. And it was such a beautiful experience. And it was such a great relationship with her. And it taught me so much. So there's so much nuance. At the same time, we are worthy of whatever we decide to charge. There's also like all of this other inner work that goes into feeling really solid about whatever it is we choose to engage in. And for me, that seems like abundance. It's not a dollar. It's not, something really specific. It's being resonant in my life with all of the things, people, places, things. So that's my blab.
Yeah, I had asked them sort of at the start to share over in the chat what abundance meant to them. Oh my gosh, I don't know how to fix the muting problem. PS. So if you're not muted, please mute yourselves. Okay. And we had some good answers. People said needs are being met, peace of mind, needs are being met, and then some, releasing worry, freedom. Abundance means we have overflow, community rich in love and connection. And so, right, we shared a few things on our Instagram in the last week that were mostly focused on money, but as Maren was saying just now too, and I think these shares over in the chat really encapsulate that abundance isn't just about money. In fact, it's not really, like, money is a subset of abundance. There's so many other ways that looks, or what that means to people. And right, like if there's this really amazing energetic connection and exchange with somebody, even just in teaching and love and it feeling really fun to be with them, sometimes money isn't part of it at all. And yet, this kind of ties into a question somebody asked up above. If you already have a profitable business other than attending births, how would not charging a fee put you at a compromising position? Which I think is a really interesting question. And I think, I mean, I can speak to this directly because I would not have to actually physically attend births to meet my basic needs. Like, I make money other ways. And so my basic needs are covered. But going to births and charging for births makes it so that I have money for the things that aren't just basic, right? Like, that makes it so that I can save for my kids, that I could maybe take a friggin' vacation, that I can max out my retirement accounts, all sorts of things that I couldn't do. And so, you know, it's not that more money is always better. And maybe there's a point at which somebody's like independently wealthy or making so much money that they're like, oh, I don't need to charge money to go to births. But even then, I think this is not really a question people would have. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Anna, like, I'm assuming you don't already attend births as a midwife, because I think most midwives would just feel like it's so much work. It would be silly not to charge something, or to have some kind of an exchange, or to do every birth for free, because it's like, I was talking earlier about repeat clients and how they're so much fun, and just sort of my favorite. But even then, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of energy that goes towards somebody over the course of many, many months. Really a full year if they're contacting you super early on. So yeah, I feel like they would also feel really weird not paying me anything for the amount of care and love and support that I give them.
Yeah, well, I did that for the last year, honestly. I mean, up until, I don't know, X number of months ago, I had offered, and it wasn't free. I think there is a distinction between free and whatever other words you decide to use. So I'll probably talk more about it in the Elevate program because it's too much for right now. But it was a really cool, like, social experiment, essentially, where I came up with this name called the Abundance Project, and it was kind of based off of Charles Eisenstein's book and other people who have like talked about gift economy. And so the short story is, it wasn't free midwifery care, it was provided as a gift. And
Sorry, I accidentally muted you, Maren.
that's okay. I was like, have I been talking the whole time?
No. It was just for like 5 seconds.
Okay. Anyway, I'll talk more about it in the Elevate program, but like, I really wanted to do something new. And this sounds so crazy because like, I'm not a millionaire or even close, but I also just kind of got fed up with money and charging money and having it be about money. And there's a lot that comes with money when you're a midwife, like with clients, right? Like if you pay someone to build a house, then they're going to get the house that they wanted. And birth is not like that. So I was just kind of playing with some of the bigger ideas that I was curious about. So it was really an experiment. I did it for a full year here. And again, there's a lot to share, but was it worth it? Uh, Emotionally, it was difficult at times. Financially, like, sure, I would probably have benefited from all of the women I serve paying me my full fee. But it did create unique relationships and it taught me a lot. And at the end of the year, I decided to stop doing that. And I went back to charging money, and that felt really good too. So I don't know. That's all to say that there's like a big wide range of experimenting with these kind of things and seeing what feels good for you. You know, on our Instagram this week, people wanted to argue that midwives have always been given chickens and that's all. And it's like, if you only want chickens and that works for you, you should totally do that. But I actually was given chickens this year. So it's like not really a joke. And the chickens were great and they're laying a lot of eggs. But like, after a good bit of time, I was like, okay, as much as I want the world to be different, like I really truly do, I really don't want our kids to like necessarily grow up in this same way and have money be the only thing that ever means anything. But that's also kind of where we still are. So it was a really interesting experiment. I'm not sorry I did it. Hopefully the women that I served, as a gift really appreciated that. And it'll probably come back to me at some point because that's the law of the universe too, is that when we give, we're also open to receiving. So I did it without that expectation. Like, I don't know what will come back or when. And I don't know that it will be from those people. Anyway, it's a little out there, but just to like throw it into the mix for today.
Right. And we have a whole course called the Gift Economy mini course, which is over on the social platform. If that's a concept you're really interested in exploring. And I was totally going to say something similar, Marin, like was going to take it where you were taking it, of course, which makes sense in that, when we share about abundance and specifically about money, man, people just come out of the woodwork being like, you must be a bad person. So again, it's that like vow of poverty piece, and this victim mentality around like, I kind of wanted to read some of the other comments. And I also kind of wanted to read you my post. Is that annoying? I think it's a pretty good post. Marion had this idea of sharing the post we wrote this week. So I'm just gonna go for it because it's our Zoom. We can do what we want. Okay, so I said, guess how many emails and messages we have gotten from midwives saying we would love and need to be part of your Elevate program, but I don't have the money. It really just proves how badly this program is needed. It is not all about money, but money and financial health is sometimes a barometer of how healthy a person is in other areas of their life. That's why I'm so fascinated by my work as a money coach. If you are a practicing midwife and you don't have the funds and cash flow available to pay for additional training, investing in yourself so that you can more fully do the soul work, be grounded, embodied, and radiant as a midwife, attract better and more clients, and make radical change in the world, there is a problem. If you're a practicing midwife and you do not have a 3 to 6 month emergency fund, guess what? There is a problem. If you are a practicing midwife who has payments outstanding from past or present clients, there's a problem. If you are charging less than every other midwife in your area, there's probably a problem. I put probably because, there's a gray area. If you can't afford to refund money to crappy clients or easily pay a backup midwife, there's a problem. Again, money is not the sole focus, but money is a window into your psyche and only is a tool that can make our work more efficient, potent, and sustainable. So many of the money problems that we see in midwifery come back to midwives putting themselves last. And that can be maybe from a lack of self-worth, a fear of being seen, a sense of scarcity and lack, a belief that being a midwife has to mean being poor. And more importantly, it has to mean that you get depleted and that you go without the nourishment and care that you deserve. And so we got a lot of comments. And again, people were pretty like, I think we even maybe deleted some, or one of our social media helpers maybe did. So I don't remember what those ones said, but someone said, sometimes it just means the clients to serve are financially struggling too. And so to that, I would say all of them, 100% of them are financially struggling. If that is the case, why are you so attracted to serving the people who are struggling? Because, yes, of course, there are people in every community who are financially struggling. Like in my heart of hearts, I am like an anti-capitalist. I get that people are not being paid enough. People, like that is all true. But even so, all of your clients, every single one of them, like that's who you want to serve. And sometimes those people are struggling because of circumstantial reasons. And this is a very unpopular opinion. Sometimes people are financially struggling because they have other struggles that actually probably make them not that great of a client to be working with in the home birth setting. And I could say more about that, but essentially, that's not always true. But I think the idea that every single client that you would take on is financially struggling is bonkers to me. And again, not sustainable. Unless you're like, okay, then these people who are struggling could afford $2,000 a month and I can take on 5 a month because I have that capacity, right? Like we play with the numbers, right? But starting from this point of like, yeah, but, right? Like that was the response from a lot of people. Yeah, but this, and that, and they have these excuses. I don't see the chicken comment. I think it got deleted. It was very funny. I responded to the chicken comment with, I would gladly take about 500 pounds of grass-fed and finished beef for payment if a client out there is reading this, but a few chickens is not going to cut it, folks. Because the grass-fed beef I buy for my kids is $8 a pound. So. Yeah. And there was just, I don't have to read all of them, but another comment was, do you feel that this message is applicable to midwives serving impoverished areas? I love where you're headed with this in theory. I just am unclear what this would practically look like for folks living and serving in impoverished areas, which that word just in itself is gnarly to me. And then one more fascinating thing. This was from someone in Germany. She said, in Germany, we are not allowed to have free price management as midwives. The state determines how much is paid by insurance, and it is forbidden to charge more. Hence, there are less and less midwives doing the work, as it is not even self-sustaining if you have a family. So we don't have to get into the licensing and state control of midwifery, because hopefully you all know where we stand on that. But just a really fascinating sort of intersection between those two topics. See what's happening over here in the chat. Are you frozen, Maren? Oh, you were for a second. No, okay.
Nope, not frozen.
Okay, not frozen. Where to next?
Well, I can read mine as well. But to yours, I still am thinking how crazy it is that people as a whole, women as a whole, seem to not want better for themselves, because I think there's a reality to the money conversation. We all know that, like, we have to buy things with it, and sometimes we don't have enough, and like that's a real thing. But that doesn't mean that we like stop imagining what our lives could be and what other lives could be. And that's where those comments just to me are like dead. Like there's nothing to say. Like if you want to live in that world, then you should live in that world. And there's nothing anyone can do to kind of like pull you into this new reality that I know is being created. So I think that's the question. Like, yes, it's real, but do you have energy to give towards creating what you actually want? Or do you just want to sit around and complain about how whatever it is, whatever it is, midwives don't make money or whatever. Okay, I'll read mine. Yeah, I got fired up as well, probably from reading the comments on yours. So mine came after. This may not be a popular post. Midwifery is an art and science. We provide a valuable service, and some midwives take this to the nth degree. that they must be martyrs to make sure everyone under the sun has access to this care. Should have access is what we hear, and I disagree. No one anywhere is entitled to anything. While the compassionate heart is a part of midwifery, the self-sacrificing martyr needs to stop being part of what we do. Compassion is not self-sacrifice. There will always be people who can't afford any service one offers. And yes, we use our discretion, our intuition, our wisdom, and also our bullshit meter, because financial stuff is so subjective, when we choose consciously to serve a woman for less compensation. And this is coming from a midwife that has offered services free of charge to her community for over a year. Wow, did I learn some valuable stuff. Midwifery has never been about doing it for the money in many circles, but we have taken this too far. We forget we need to have an energy exchange. And if that's not cash, it has to darn well be valuable to you, perhaps a barter or trade. Midwives, you are really not helping anyone if you can't help yourself. You are perhaps perpetuating this victim consciousness lack mentality, and it is for that reason that tons of people who don't seem to have money to pay a midwife seem to find you. Harsh truth. What's the solution? Change the inside, your beliefs, your energy, work with your trauma in order to clearly reflect who you are, what your role is, and who you actually want to serve. The old world is dying. Embrace the new and the possibilities, even if it feels scary and confronting. Then, whether you serve people that have tons of money or no money hardly matters. You will be perfectly aligned to invite in abundance no matter what. The end.
And
And
yeah, and something, as you're saying that, I don't know which piece, but it made me think about just like awareness in general, and like I said, I do this other money coaching work, sometimes with birth workers, and most of the time now with people who aren't birth workers. But what I've seen a lot of times across the board, I almost always work with women, but especially with birth workers, there's just like oftentimes like a lack of awareness about their financial health. And like I said in my post too, like I think sometimes that is parallel with a lack of awareness in other areas of health. So when we're talking with our clients about like their physical health, their emotional health, their spiritual health, their social health, like there's all these areas that we look at. Financial health is just another aspect of that. It's another way that we engage with like the universal flow of energy, right? And taking and self-care and all of those things. And so when there's midwives who want to be charging less all the time or taking on mostly, really, low paying clients or whatever, I think what I've noticed is that they're not aware of what they even need. Like, what do I actually need so that I can live the life that I want? And then even taking it a step further, what is the life that I want, right? Who am I and what do I want is sort of like the starting point of all of these conversations, and the rest flows from that. So like I was saying, it's like the inside work has to be done first. And I really like the money conversation because it's a really tangible way to get at some of those, limiting beliefs and sort of core wounds that we all have, because it's like black and white on paper, and it's not like you can't ignore it. You can't hide it unless you absolutely like never ever look at it. But that is something that I see a lot in the birth work world, is people who are like, oh, I just like don't even look at it. I don't even have a business account. I just put money into like whatever account and it goes out, and I really have no idea how much I make. I really have no idea how much I spend. Like there's just this like really intentional lack of attention being placed on that. And it's really unhealthy, in my opinion.
Yeah, Shauna, I really like your question, and she's asking about sliding scale. I mean, I've done that, and so I can share kind of what I think, but I think my question back to you would be, does that feel good? Like, does that feel good to leave that open to people? It might, I think it just depends if you want to put that in their hands, or you're really clear about your value and what it costs for you to be their midwife. I think it's two completely different feelings. And again, I've been there, done that. And for me, I mean, never say never, right? But sliding scale ultimately didn't feel right to me because people would almost always choose the lower end of the scale, was my experience. And I realized it's because I was like leaving my value just kind of like up to their discretion rather than being like, this is who I am. This is the kind of midwifery I offer. It's not what everybody else does. You either take it or you leave it. Like, this is what it costs. And then I always have said to people, and I still do, this is what it costs. If, and it says this on my contract, if you really feel like that is an immense hardship or impossibility for you, I welcome a conversation. And you have to be an adult also to have that conversation. Some people don't want to, whether they have tons of money or not a lot of money. Money is uncomfortable. So I need people to like be grown-ups and come with a proposal. That's what I ask of them. If you want me to be your midwife and you can't afford what my fee is, you need to come and say, here's what we can do. Here's how much. Here's how we would pay it, whatever. Because otherwise with the sliding scale, it's like kind of like you're getting into that with almost everyone. And I'm not quite sure that even our most ideal client in a way doesn't entirely understand the value if, say, they've never had a baby before. Like they might see your work wherever on the internet or talk to other clients, but until they experience it themselves, it's like, how can we expect them? How can we expect them? And it's also a matter of priority, right? So I don't want to leave that up to someone. I've had people tell me they couldn't pay my full fee because they had a vacation to take. So you never know kind of what people's priorities are. And I would sort of make them work for it. If they actually need help, then they will ask if they really want what you have. And I think that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I won't do like a really long ditto of what you just said, but just a quick like, I don't know if I think I must have learned that from you because I was doing the sliding scale when I first started. I mentioned that I think before you hopped back on, Marin. And but yeah, now I do a similar thing. I say ball is in your court. If somebody's like grown up enough to say, and it also says on my website and in my contract, if this is too much, if this won't work, if you can't pay by 36 weeks, please, like, let's have a conversation. And some of those people have come back with like hey, here's what I can do. And other people have disappeared. And for me, it's like a pretty important hurdle for them to be able to get over. And it's a really great kind of litmus test because it's like, oh, maybe you just don't have a lot of money right now because whatever, some crazy circumstances that the universe threw at you. And sometimes it's like, oh, you don't have a lot of money right now because you have zero self-worth and have no dreams for yourself and have made really terrible choices and are probably going to keep making terrible choices. And like those people, I don't really want anything to do with as a midwife. And so, yeah, just putting that out there. Ball is in your court. That's a phrase that I like to use.
And my experience has been that very rarely when people use a money reasoning, it's not about the money. It's really not. It's very, very rarely about like the actual dollar. It's usually about something else. And I mean, all of us have done it. Like all of us right here have done it. We're kind of conditioned to say, oh, I can't afford that. And if you stop yourself from saying that the next time you're about to say it, ask yourself what you really mean. Like, what do you mean? Because it's probably not a priority. And again, I'm not diminishing the fact that maybe somebody has, $10 and are they going to spend it on food? Or, are they going to do something else with it? Food is imperative. So in that case, it is about money, but it's still a choice. Like at the end of it, it's still a choice where someone puts their money. So my favorite, and I'm being sarcastic, over time has been the, something like, oh, my husband says we don't have money for that. I'm like, cool. Like that's your life and, your dynamics and your choice. But it's very rarely about money. It's usually a cover up for something else. And I don't necessarily care about figuring it out, right? If I'm not going to work with the person. But a lot of women that are really scared, honestly, even scared about having a home birth, it's way easier to be like, oh, I can't afford that. So again, I'm not saying it's not real in some cases, but that's the bullshit meter part of my post is we sometimes have to like do a little detective work if we care, or just tune in energetically and see what feels true for us. And that's the only way to really go forward. Otherwise, you're a walking charity and you're giving away services. And who else does a sliding scale? What other profession does that? Right. And our beautiful doctor friends that we love so much charge 4 times what we do. So this year, I think I've shared here and there, I started charging for consults. Not a lot, $100, but I don't want to spend an hour anymore with people that aren't even willing to pay that. When, again, comparison, a doctor maybe doing home births charges $600 for a 1 hour consult. So like, lift yourself up, ladies. Stop putting yourself like out there as if you have to give and never get anything back. I think in the end, you respect yourself more and people can feel that. And again, maybe they'll come forward with a conversation to negotiate. We live in a world where that's fine. Negotiation is kind of part of the deal. So, don't sell yourself short is the message.
Georgia asked, would asking to verify household income be weird if they are expecting a discounted rate? I was actually going to bring this up sort of as like a half-baked thought that I've had. I've had the thought of offering some sort of like service for midwives with these clients. And then I actually swing back to like, just make them make a proposal. But I could imagine a scenario in which you tell them, oh, if you want a sliding scale or a discount, like you have to go talk to Margot or some other budget person to be like, let's actually look at your budget and see what the amount is that you have to work with at the end of the month on top of your regular expenses and figure out a payment plan that works. Like to have someone else do it, because that would be really weird for you to probably do as the person offering the services. So I don't think it's weird. It's actually like what my kids' preschool does. It's a private Waldorf school. If you want a discount, you have to like give them all your information. And I think they have a money person look at it and make some sort of calculations about how much they think you should be able to afford. And then that's what they charge you. So I don't think it's weird. I do think it's like a lot of work and it's like kind of awkward if you're the one doing it, but I've definitely thought like, oh, that could be kind of a cool, like third party thing to have someone else do. But didn't you toy with the idea of having someone kind of do that with me? I'm trying to remember, Maren. Or it was something else and they didn't end up taking you up on it. And I had even offered to do it for free.
Yeah, it was around like food and food budgeting, a client that was like, saying that it was hard to afford the food she needed for her pregnancy. But yeah, I don't think it was about that. It turned out to be about other deeper stuff and relationships and self-worth for her as well. So that's why she didn't take you up on it, because
right.
I don't think there was anything really to look at. It was something
right.
She just believed to be true. And of course, with food, that's a whole other Zoom call. It came down to, well, all kinds of things, the way food does. So yeah, I know. A lot of the time I bet people don't take you up on it because
it's not actually about the money.
It's not actually about the money. So while we have to make it kind of about the money, it's not always about the money for us either. And that's, again, just sort of circling back is, I don't necessarily see that attending births as a midwife, even if you charge at the top of whatever scale, is probably going to make anyone a billionaire. Maybe that's me. I don't think that I'm totally off in that. I think you can live comfortably, but again, another Zoom call is like the payback, or not the payback, like what you incur in your own like physical and emotional health may possibly not be worth that money anyways. So I'm looking forward to taking some time off, and yeah, maybe I'll miss miss getting paid in that way, but actually being able to take care of myself fully is worth a lot more than I was going to get paid, honestly, from clients during that time. So I'm fortunate in that, to not absolutely positively have to do it. I think that's a whole other topic, to be in a position where you absolutely must take clients on, for whatever reasons you have. But, there's so much more that goes into all of this that money can't put a price on. So money can't put a price on a really awesome client, and money can't put a price on like your adrenals, like shutting down because you haven't slept in a month. That's the truth. I see Tina nodding. Sure is. No amount of money is worth it. And that's kind of how I got to the Abundance Project. Honestly, I had hit this wall where I was like, there's no amount of money worth it in a way. Like, what is worth it, right? Paying bills is great, check. But like in the bigger picture of feeling like just, I don't know what the word is, like just feeling really great about it and being like, this all makes perfect sense. I'm getting paid for these clients and they always work out great and my life is just so smooth. And birth is not like that. You'll have two people pay you the same amount and the one person takes, time wise is a breeze. And then the next person makes up for it tenfold and you spend 4 days at their house in labor. So anyways, it's not meant to be discouraging. It's just like none of us are actually charging what we're worth. If we were, we'd be charging $50,000 to take care of someone because that's the toll that it takes on us. And that's what, in my dream world, I would love to see one day.
Totally. Well, and I think that points towards sort of a cool exercise that I could maybe leave you all with since we're getting close to our hour here. But if you're a practicing midwife, or even if you're not, if you're an aspiring midwife or doula, or really anyone, I think it's really worth taking some time to, do something boring like a Google sheet or Excel spreadsheet, or if you're really cool, you could use YNAB. That's what I use for my budgeting stuff. And come up with an amount, like add up all of the things that you would like to be including in your life, things you need to pay, things you want to pay for, and come up with a number that maybe is like a dream and feels not like something that could happen tomorrow, but is a goal for an amount that you'd like to be bringing in per month so that you could take care of all of the things. And, that number will change and the things on that list would change. But, like for me with being on call, it's like, I really kind of have to go for a massage twice a month because my back gets wrecked at every birth I go to. I need to probably do some core workouts and add that to my list. I need a personal trainer, probably, add that to the list. But I'm saying, like, what are the things that you need to make your life sustainable? And to take care of yourself well, and to take care of your family well, and then work backwards. Like, what do you need to be charging then? And how many births are you doing per month to get to that number? And we don't have complete control over that either, right? Like, I've gone through spells of like nobody contacting me for many months. And then I'm currently in like this really weird, like literally 3 weeks where I went from having like a client to now having 8 for this year. So you never know. But I think it's still a worthwhile exercise. And I think, and this was something that came up in an email recently with someone. She brought up that her husband had gotten laid off. And so she was interested in doing the Elevate program, but felt like things were kind of tight. She was able to, cover her expenses for the moment, but not a lot of like wiggle room. And so I would also encourage everyone to figure out what that number is for themselves and to try to make that number themselves, not to be relying on a partner. And maybe this is just me being feisty as a single mom over here now, but like, I don't think that it's wise to factor in other people's income because, for a myriad reasons, like that may not always be the case. And that gets into some more other, into the weeds a little bit, but I think that it would be a really awesome project for people on here, if you haven't already done that exercise, like what is that number that would be really, really awesome, really, really comfortable? And what would it take in terms of pricing and number of clients that you reasonably can take on to get there? And yeah, that's some homework for you all. What budgeting app did you mention? I use YNAB when I do budget coaching for people. I just put it in the chat. It stands for You Need a Budget, and they're very funny. Like, it's a funny app.
I'll post the link to our Elevate program here. If you don't know, this is for midwives that are already out there doing this, whether it's been a long time or whether you're brand new. We don't care. And we also don't care what type of midwife you are. Does not matter. I don't know that we have any CNMs here tonight. It doesn't matter at all to us. If you're feeling a call to kind of restructure from the ground up and emotionally and even spiritually get more clear on all of this, and this discussion just being a part, of course, of this entire program. So it's a 6-week program, and we'll be diving into all kinds of inner work together as a group here on Zoom live twice a week. We will be recording the live session, so we get it. You're on call, you're tired, whatever. It will be in the course portal. So we hope that midwives here will check it out and or share it with any of your colleagues. It would be really fantastic to have, midwives from kind of all over in different maybe paths to midwifery coming together as a circle, as a community, to just figure these things out together. So how do we lift ourselves up? How do we elevate the practice of midwifery to something really soul affirming, not just like something we do to make money, but make it so much more, so that you can be really clear on like so many of the things we've talked about, from who you're working with to how you're calling in abundance to your soul connection to these people you're serving. It's all related. It's absolutely all related. So I didn't put the link, but for those on YouTube, it's I got it. It's just indiebirth.org/elevate. And you can check out the details and perhaps join us come spring equinox. So we're open for registration right now. And in about 3 weeks, we'll start together. And Margot and I will trade off teaching and sharing all of the things that we've learned and just inviting you to like go through your own process. So, it's not about all coming out the same. Each of us here have different issues, so to speak, or different things that we want to get clear on. And that's really the purpose, is to hold that container for midwives. So check it out and share it if you would. If you're not a midwife, send it to your midwife or send it to the midwives in your community. And those that resonate, of course, will, and those that don't, won't, and all is good.
Yeah, and if you have questions about it, if it's a good fit for you, you can totally email us. I'm willing to hop on the phone with someone too for 10 or 15 minutes if they want to talk through their unique situation and whether or not this would benefit them. My email is margo@indiebirth.org. Marin's marin@indiebirth.org. And without taking too much more time, I was just going to say at least 3 of the 6 sessions that I'm doing are going to be heavily about money. So money stories, your background with it, kind of where you're at now, figuring out your vision for yourself in terms of financial health, actually digging into like some of that, this exercise that I just sort of put forth for you all, and talking in community about money, because it's so healing. So many people have shame around it and feel like they want to barf even just talking about it with other human beings, like what that number would be for themselves. So, talking through, like what are your dreams and goals, and how can we make sure that you're making moves towards reaching them? How to set up a budget, like someone said over in the chat, like they don't have one. A lot of people don't. And doing some of that like nerdy, nitty gritty left brain stuff, in addition to the more feminine exploration and inner work. So you'll get both sides, as you always do with anything Marin and I put together. You're going to get the science, you're going to get the sacred, you're going to get the numbers, you're going to get the facts, you're going to get the touchy, the feely, the woo, all of it. And come out with just a way clearer idea of how you want to do this work in a way that's sustainable and awesome. So we would love for you to join us. And if you just need money help, you can also reach out to me at margotblackstone.com. But it's going to be way more fun to do it in a group with other midwives if you're a midwife.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us here on this random Sunday. We'll see you again on Tuesday for the full moon Zoom on radical prenatal care. I'm pretty sure that's what it's about. So come hang out with us. Tell all of your pregnant clients or friends or doulas, since radical prenatal care is something that affects a lot more people, perhaps, than this talk tonight. But we'll see you there on Tuesday. Have a great start to your week, everybody. See you in just a couple of days.